Hello and welcome to the Leadership Series. We have been on a wonderful journey. This has been a new thing for the UNI Family Business Center. We rolled it out in August, and Mary Andringa from Vermeer Corporation is our third speaker. So we've had a
Thank you.
lot of great insight as we've taken this journey, different people at different ages and stages. And so I'm loving the opportunity to talk to Mary and be able to do some looking in the rearview mirror, looking ahead. And so we will welcome her in just a minute in terms of upcoming events. Are we going to share it? Yeah, there we go. Just so you can get your calendar in sync. We have some fun things coming up. On June 23rd, it's the Family Business Week celebration, and we'll be at Luau Brewing, and that is in Des Moines. We did this for the first time last year, and it just offered a great opportunity for families to come out. So we actually got to meet entire families and meet one another and spend some informal time with us celebrating Family Business Week. On June 30th, we have boot board boot camp number 2, and it's Operation Fit to Serve. And that's been a great journey for families that either have a board or are looking to put a board together. And so we're hoping that you can join us for that. And then looking ahead in July, number 3 is the Special Forces Independent Directors. And a big note for your calendar, the 6th Annual Iowa Family Business Conference will be in Pella with Vermeer. And so the keynote speaker will have more information coming out, which relates to Pella. And so we hope that you can join us. So let's get started today with Mary's conversation. Mary, thank you so much for joining us. And we are excited that you are here. One of the things that I've learned as I've got to listen to you and talk to you, that your journey to the family business was not a straight line. It's almost like you had a life before and then it blossomed and it continues to blossom. So would you tell us a little bit about one, growing up in the family business and what that looked like, and then kind of the path you took and what drew you back?
Okay, well, Jane, it's a great privilege to be here with you and other members of family businesses. I'm a huge believer in family business, so anyway, I can be supportive and hopefully encouraging to other people in family business. It's just a real pleasure for me. So I grew up. My dad started the company the year before I was born, literally on. It was incorporated on the day of my birthday, and I was born 1 year later. So I grew up going to the quote the plant with him, which was our original plant, which was on the west side of Pella, and would walk the floors with him. And he would go to check on projects or talk to the night safety person who was there. I remember we traveled a lot. My dad got his pilot's license when I was 3 months old, and it was a great way for him to start the business because he could fly places a lot quicker with his own small single engine airplane than you could by going commercially. Because at that time, the commercial planes were like trains. They stopped
Mhm.
at Omaha, Denver, Salt Lake to get to California, for instance. And so some of our early family vacations, he also did some business along the way. And I remember sitting in on one great trip to Alaska at dinner with a customer. So, just kind of on the side of that. And then when I was in high school, I worked in the office in the summers. It was the days when you didn't have mimeograph machines. And so, you typed a letter out
Mhm.
to a customer with 3 carbon copies. And then I also did a lot of putting books together, service books, operational books that had to do with our equipment. And we didn't have collators, so literally you put all the pages down on a table and did the round and just, picked up every single page and put the books together. So those were some of my early memories. I also do remember my dad sitting at the kitchen table and talking about this idea about how to transplant large trees because we were into tree spades for a while. And then later on, it was more like in college and when my husband was in medical school, hearing him talk about the large round hay baler, something he was really excited about. So those were some of my early memories. And my path, as you said, was not a straight line. I went into music education. So I taught music K through 6, and I taught kindergarten in Iowa City Public Schools while my husband was in medical school. But I was already attending some shareholder meetings. I mean, they were not very organized. They were just, like a half an hour on New Year's Day shareholder meeting. And I thought, man, it'd be great if I could understand the balance sheet a little bit better and the profit and loss statement. So while we were in Iowa City, I took a correspondence course with the University of Iowa, and I took 2 semesters of accounting so that I would be a little bit more up to speed when we had meetings and I could understand it a bit better. And then when my husband was in his residency, I directed a preschool, so I stayed in education. But my one brother said to me, Mary, I think there are going to be more women in business in the future. You might want to think about when Dale, settles down to his wherever he goes for his post-residency job, being close enough that you could be involved in Vermeer in the future. And so we settled in Des Moines, and then really quite quickly I became involved in just some projects. There were some marketing research projects, some HR projects. I went to some of the sales meetings, and I found out that I loved seeing the equipment. And many of our early dealers were people who had been working at the Vermeer Pella location. And I had worked with many of them. And then they had gone out to start their own dealership. So I just became more and more interested. And then again, early 80s, I started with part-time work. And then that evolved into very full-time work over the next really decade and beyond.
I love that. It's amazing what a journey it was. And also, the one thing that I always think about when I think about you is a trailblazer in terms of that early time frame where roles that women maybe didn't necessarily have their moment yet, that you just grabbed it and kept stepping forward. As you were balancing your own family and balancing leadership and your siblings, how'd you find your own voice in the family business?
I don't know that I actually thought about it that much, but I think the way I established respect from team members and from dealers is I really listened a lot. I asked questions and I listened, and I did get out to dealerships quite a lot, into customers, and I loved that. And I would always take notes. I would listen, I would take notes, and I would go back and follow up on whatever questions or concerns. They usually like to dump a lot of problems on me. And I would always get feedback. And usually I would give feedback almost the same day to say, hey, I'm looking into this, I'm talking with so and so, and I'll get back to you. And I did. I mean, I got back to people. I was very good at feedback. And same thing on the shop floor. If people stopped me and said, hey, we're having this issue, I really tried to investigate and then get back to people. So I felt like that was the way that I kind of gained some respect. And then really fairly early on, I developed what we call our 4P philosophy. So I had a team member who came to me and said, Mary, we always knew what your dad was all about, but what about you kids? Because that time I had 2 brothers in the business. And I thought, wow, we need to sort of figure out a way to define our values. And my brothers and I had done some goal setting, and really a lot of the goals were not goals, they were boundaries. They were like we try to hire within. We could promote from within wherever we can. We don't go into big time debt. We really continually reinvest our profits back into the business, and we stand behind our product. And if our product's not doing well, we go out with care kits and take care of it. And so I had just read a book about Lee Iacocca, and he talked about product, profit, and people. And I thought for us, if we put principles in the middle of that, which for us are biblical principles, if we put principles in the center and then that principles apply to deep respect and opportunities for people, excellence and safety and innovation in product, and being good stewards of profit so that we're very financially solid. Then I thought, those 4 Ps, that would kind of resonate with people. And I just started talking about it. I did some articles in our monthly newsletter, and I ran that by my brothers, and they were all good with it. And then as a teacher, I would have a chance often to talk at sales meetings, dealer meetings, customer meetings, and I just would talk, wouldn't overdo it, but I would talk a little bit about these are the values. When you buy a piece of Vermeer equipment, when you are a dealer representing Vermeer, you should know what are the key values of the company, because that gives you a better opportunity to really be the brand ambassador for that company. And I'm pleased to say those 4 Ps are still our foundational values. We still actually put all of our metrics under those 4 Ps, and they're on the bottom, the foundation of our strategic planning documents. So that was one thing that I really got involved in. And then in the early 90s, I was really into lifelong learning and education, and so helped establish what we call Vermeer University. Still going today. We offer like hundreds of courses, some online, a lot still in person, all soft skills, hard skills. And then I also got very involved in continuous improvement. And that probably is what people know me best for, is that I'm a champion for continuous improvement, or lean, taking waste out of every process. And so anyway, just I think those are things that kind of set me apart, but I also had so much passion around them. And I just, I ran things by my brothers. First I had 2, and then later just one was involved in the business. And we were pretty much always on the same page on those kinds of things. But he also was really willing to let me take the lead on some of those things. So yeah, I just I guess I just took advantage of the opportunities that came.
I love that. Kristen, you want to jump in with your question?
Yeah, so throughout your career transitions, what are some pivotal moments or mentors that you've had that have shaped your leadership style and direction over that time?
Unfortunately, there were not many women that I could really go to for a mentorship. I would say when I taught music in Iowa City Public Schools, Mary Kramer was a mentor to me as far as music for the classroom, but she was also just a person who had a lot of fun in her life. And so, she, in a way, she was a mentor about just enjoying every day. And then another really informal mentor, I would say, would be Joan Farver, who was the second generation family member of the Pella Corporation in Pella. And so she was my dad's age, but I really respected her. She served for a number of years as chair of the board. She did not work day to day ever in the business, but she was very involved as chair. And the thing I really picked up from her is the importance of writing notes to people. She was a champion at giving lots of feedback. She wrote a lot of notes to me, just for different things that were happening at Vermeer. But most probably prominent in my life of mentors I'd have to say would be my dad and Max Dupre, who was the CEO of Herman Miller in Michigan, in Holland, Michigan. And their furniture business. And later on, I had the opportunity actually to serve on the Miller Knoll board for 25 years. But both of them asked me the same question. They said, "Are you having fun?" And it wasn't, are you having rah-rah fun? It's, are you finding satisfaction in your work? Are you passionate? Are you engaged in your work? And I thought that was a great question, because we should be engaged and feeling like we're really contributing in our work. And as my dad said, if you're not having fun, if you're not engaged, then probably it's not the right thing to stay involved in the business. So those were kind of two informal mentors. Unfortunately, again, I wish I would have been able to tap into some other women leaders. There were certainly some women that I admired from afar, but I never really had a chance to be mentored by them.
Well, and I know right now I've had several people at different touch points that have told me how great of a job you do mentoring women. And that was one of the things as we designed this series. Your name came up very quickly because we know that you've taken that role and embraced it, even though you may not have had it available to you. What advice would you give to others who are aspiring for growth in leadership roles in their family enterprise?
Well, I'd say one thing that's really important is to, with your family group, is to work on some governance guidelines. So early on, with the help of a consultant, we developed a family employment policy, for instance, and that we didn't really have that when I came through, but in a way, I did what the family employment policy said. I worked outside the business for 3 to 5 years and was recognized for doing good work. And so, having those guidelines are helpful, I think, for men or women in the business to know sort of what's expected and what things they should be thinking about doing. It's also, I think, really important to meet with other family businesses. It's why I'm so proud that UNI has this family business center. Because when I first started, we had to go usually to Chicago to meet with other family businesses. You can learn so much by talking to other family business leaders. And it's not that necessarily what they do is exactly what you need to do, but it will spark your imagination. It will reinforce some of the things you're already doing. And it'll definitely give you food for thought about what are some other things, you should be doing. And then again, I would say, learn to listen, ask a lot of questions, meet with other family business owners where you can learn from them and you can ask questions. And then I'd also advise family businesses because, we all talk about there's the business of the business and there's the business of the family. And I think the business of the family can be sometimes by far the most difficult, even though we go through up and down economic ups and downs. But if there are tough times, don't be afraid to get some outside help, some consulting help. We've used several consultants through the years, and they've helped navigate some kind of rough waters. We also have been blessed to have independent directors since already the mid 80s. And in the early 90s and 2000s, going through economic tough times, but also some family issues. We really relied a lot on those independent directors, their advice, their outlook, as not being in the business, but yet knowing enough about the business. Wow, they can just give you some phenomenal advice. So those would be a few points.
I love that.
So I'm sure things have transitioned over time, but today, where does your focus lie within the family and within the family business? So
Okay,
today,
yeah.
what is that?
Thank you. And again, I realize this is not the same for everybody, but because my dad had a very hard time retiring as a G1, and he really sort of never did. He would just kind of keep coming back in and out and in and out, usually with problems, things he didn't like that he would see. And he tended, I loved my dad, but he was pretty much an autocratic type first gen leader. And so he didn't give a lot of positive feedback necessarily. It was more just on how you should be doing it this way. We decided we were not going to try to burden our third generation with senior members who stayed on too long. So for us, that was kind of the background. And so we put, with again, the help of actually one of our lean consultants helped us through this. At 65, we said, if we've been CEO, we're going to move to chair. And at 70, we're going to move from chair to chair emeritus, or chair emerita in my case. And so that's exactly what I did, what my brother did, what I did. And then at 75, we stay chair emeritus or chair emerita, but we're actually a little bit more passive. So not as like, I don't attend every board meeting anymore. I'm past 75. I still attend like one a year as an observer, but I'm really in what we call the ambassador phase. And really, any of our shareholders, and I think this is an idea for anybody who's got a family company and you've got shareholders who are not involved in the day-to-day but still want to be engaged, is to come up with an ambassador sort of role or roles that shareholders can contribute. So just this morning, I just got off a walk around with one of our chaplains. We've got 5 chaplains here at our headquarters in Pella, and they're there to walk alongside our team members, just, getting engaged in the work. Sometimes they bring lots of issues with them, family, financial, healthcare, that kind of thing. And our chaplains just walk alongside with people, often can point them to certain, consultants that can help them in the local area. But once a month, several of us who are quote ambassadors go with one of the chaplains through a plant, and we just greet people. I mean, it was so much fun today. We must have met, my husband goes with me, and we must have met 30 people, talked to about 30 people, and about half of them were fairly new. So, really didn't know me from before. Some of them did. Some of them had been involved, 15 plus years. And just, hear a little bit about where they worked before they came to Vermeer. How do they find the work now? And it's very heartwarming because we hear a lot. We just love our job, are very happy. And many of them come from quite different backgrounds. I've met 2 people today who are managers at one of the Walmarts. Often we meet people who have a medical background. Just one guy was a painter, one guy washed windows. And anyway, just finding out about them and then thanking them for the work they do. And as in a family business, I don't think we can understand enough how much the family connection means to team members. Just knowing that the family wants this kind of culture in the business. And so when we have family camp this summer, we've had, I think, 15 years of family camp now, which is really awesome. We're going to have a huge crowd this year that come from all over the country. So they're all shareholders. Some of them we've got some babies and all the way up to, 80 years old. And we will serve lunch to all the team members in our Pella locations. And last year we went to Des Moines and served lunch as well. And a couple years ago we were in Greenville, South Carolina, and we served lunch. And it's just a way to say a concrete way to say the family owners appreciate you. So that's an ambassador role. My husband and I are still asked to teach some classes. It's what we call the new we in our retirement phase of life. We've taught several classes. We teach a class on leadership to 3 or 4 groups a year. We teach a class on how to prepare for retirement, or what we call third phase. We'll do that this fall for team members who are looking to retire within 5 to 10 years. We'll meet with customers that come in this summer. My family home, the one I grew up in, we've turned it into a family museum. Small, it's just a ranch house. It's nothing special, but it's been kind of fun to turn it into a family museum. And my husband and I and several other shareholders will be in the family home as customers come in, because usually they're pretty blown away by how simple it is. And that helps them identify with a company that's going to take good care of their resources, to be honest with you. And we'll share stories in there. And then, so that's kind of business, but it's also family. And then definitely love being involved in our intergenerational family camp, which happens always the second weekend in July. And so we have educational classes, but we've got intergenerational activities, and that's a time where sometimes I'm with my nephew's son or my niece's daughter or my cousin's son or daughter. And I learned this from a family member from Weyerhaeuser many years ago. And she said, and they still have family camps. She said, sometimes you who are not directly related, I mean, you're not like a nuclear family, but you can relate to somebody else in the family who's maybe, third cousin or something, but better because you're not you're not right
Mhm.
siblings or something like that. And so I do enjoy asking the G4s, what they're doing this summer. Maybe they've had some shadowing experiences at Vermeer. They're working in an internship, or they're pursuing a passion of theirs. My cousin's son just got his pilot's license. I got my license when I was 17. My son got his license when he was 17. We're kind of from a family of pilots, but it's not so easy anymore to get a pilot's license. But wow, I've had so much fun connecting with him on when he first soloed and how many hours he has, and when he went first checkout ride. And yeah, so it's just fun to connect with various members and to encourage them. And I learned this from one of the people in our third phase class about 10, 12 years ago, how important it can be to text young people. So I do this with my own grandkids before they've got a volleyball game or a track meet or a cross country or a choir concert or a theater event, to text them just to let them know I'm thinking of them and hoping it goes well. And then usually try to always text them afterwards to tell them what a great job they did, often to send a picture if I took a picture of them playing, getting a spike at the volleyball net or whatever, and tell them how proud we are. And it's always positive. I only ever will send them positive messages. But now I try to do that also with some of these next generation who are not my grandkids, but they're the grandkids of my brothers or my cousins. So I don't know if that kind of helps, but yeah, the ambassador role is kind of more into the business, supporting the business. In a couple weeks, we're going to have family tickets for family fun events. So Adventureland tickets for their family, Iowa State Fair, Knoxville Raceway, and we who are ambassadors get to go out and help hand those out. So again, it's just really wanting to let our team members know how much we appreciate them.
I love all of that. You guys do such a great job, and you specifically, of intertwining family that really becomes a difference between other businesses and family businesses. And then I'm also kind of having that moment um, where you were earlier talking about writing notes. Texting's become the new generation of a handwritten note to some degree. So that's awesome. My next question is, I know that you go out and you share so much with other family businesses in terms of you've been at some conferences and travel nationally in terms of some of the different topics that are out there. So as you connect with other women and other family businesses, what do you find is the most asked question that you get, and how do you respond to it?
I would say and I don't meet only with women who are in business, but also
Mhm.
some men. But I think with women in particular, the questions I get more are, how do I handle this situation with my dad or my sibling? Could be a
Mhm.
sister or a brother. And I think I mentioned this before. I don't think we should ever be fearful of sometimes tapping into an outside consultant
Mhm.
to help us through an issue. Or if you have an independent board or an advisory board, one person on that board might be helpful in just being almost a mediator, if you're
Mhm.
talking through an issue. And then just really working on communication, just really, and always asking the question, what are we missing? What could we do better? I'll give you an example. We had a huge dot-com downturn in the early 2000s, 2001 to 3. And 50% of our business were horizontal directional drills that we're putting in fiber. And the whole fiber thing just collapsed. And it was 80% of our profit. And we went from 300 million in sales in directional drills to like 10. That's a huge drop. That's a huge drop. And my dad became really, really antsy. He had lived through the Depression. He was sure we were headed into a huge depression. Became very difficult for my brother and I, who were involved day to day as CEO and COO in the business. And but what we came up with was an idea that every Monday morning he would come in, and we went into our war room, which was where's the executive team met. And we would go over everything that we had worked on that week to reduce inventory in the field and on our yard, because that was the big thing. We were sitting with way too much. We just started our lean journey. We were putting out twice the amount of drills with the same number of people, just using all the lean concepts. But we did not have a good pacing mechanism from a sales standpoint. Our dealers were still just ordering in batch once a month. Now we're on a replenishment system. We're on most cases on a replenishment system. Works much better. But we had to learn that. We had to learn that step, and we weren't there yet. And so we just went, my dad, a couple things we knew were his hot buttons: inventory, accounts receivable, and cash. Those were his 3 hot points. And so literally we went over every Monday where was the inventory in the field, which was not that point. We didn't have a good mechanism to know that. So we had to really work with dealers on that. And what about the inventory on our backyard? And how are we doing on accounts receivable? Because we had some dealers that got into some issues during that time. And where were we on cash? And so that helped smooth the waters. And so finding the things that you need to communicate on, whether it's with a sibling or could be a child or a parent, what are the key things? And sometimes it's just making sure we try to wipe away the negative assumptions and by giving real facts and data about what's going on in the business.
I love that. I did forget to mention to our audience too, if you have questions as we are going through our discussion, you can put them in chat, and we have a couple people watching chat. So we'll make sure that we ask those questions of Mary. Kristen, jump in with the next one.
Yes. So looking back, what has been the hardest aspect of working in the family business? And what do you consider your biggest challenge today?
Well, I think looking back, I mentioned this earlier, the business of the family has been the most challenging. My brother and I went through some rough spots. My dad and I and my brother went through some rough spots. And so I think, learning how to navigate those family issues is a difficult one. We've certainly had economic downturns. On that, I think we really kind of developed a really good playbook, to be honest with you, about if we see things starting to turn down, markets getting softer, some things we would do, like stop hiring, no hiring freeze for a while. In some cases, in the early 2000s, we really worked at giving people opportunities to go back to school. Just kind of a whole playbook of things that we would do, and if things got worse, what were the next steps we did. But I think the most challenging actually are the family issues. So that's why if you can have support, you and I's Family Business Center, other family businesses that you can go to for encouragement or suggestions, again, may or may not work for you, but it might spur another thought for you. And then for going for the future, I think one of the things that I really tried to think a lot about when I was in my last 5 years as a CEO, how do we get the succession right? And we have lots of great actually processes for that.
Mhm.
But also, how do we make sure the culture stays firm and sustainable? And particularly, we've done quite a few acquisitions over the last years, finding out, how you put the right managing director in place so that the culture is maintained. And I feel really positive that our executive team has done an awesome job with that, because when we do meet people in some of our other locations, they will talk about the importance of the caring culture of Vermeer. And it's not just Pella centric, it's Des Moines centric, it's Greenville, South Carolina, it's Fremont, South Dakota, it's Hoos, the Netherlands, it's China. China is actually one of our most engaged groups, teams that we have. And the managing director there has been awesome at reinforcing the culture. I mean, really, really awesome at doing that. And so we just got a lot of great people who reinforce that culture. The supervisory people, the group leaders, of course, the chaplains are there to help reinforce it in so many ways. And then our team members themselves and how they care for their peers on the line. But I think that's a challenge, How do you continue the culture that is part of your brand as you go forward with new people, new products, new locations? It makes it difficult. Things just don't stay the same if you're going to grow and prosper. And also, I'm just delighted with the cultures that we see in our dealerships. We see really strong, caring cultures in our dealerships as well, around the country and around the world. And my brother and I worked a lot on dealer development and dealer sustainability. And I think that, we talk a lot about our 4Ps, we talk about our values. They have done a lot of work on values and vision as well. So, and that, I still will hear from customers that they see a huge difference in us and our dealers versus some of our competitors, because of the way we work together and the way we really sort of have the same message. I will have customers that come to Vermeer and said, I met a lot of people out on the factory line and with engineers and the dealer I'm here with, and I hear the same message all the time. I mean, that's pretty awesome. So I think that would be. I know we'll continue to have new products. We've got very innovative people. I know we'll continue to have great people, great opportunities. We know how to weather the downturns that will come, I'm sure. But I think, maintaining that culture is really important. So we do a lot of work on this with our G4s. Our G4s are anywhere from mid to late 20s down to 0. I mean, babies just born. And we do have educational programs for all those different ages. And we work a lot on, what are the things they should know about our family employment policy, about what are their responsibilities. They're shareholders. What is their responsibility as a shareholder? They're not entitled, but they are responsible. And so last summer, I had the chance at family camp to talk to the teens a little bit, and I think it got in their head a little bit. But I said, you're responsible already. You can come to some of the webinars we do. You have the opportunity to get engaged at family camp and learn about products and people and helping serve lunch, and you have the opportunity to do some shadowing in your high school years. And what are you learning about Vermeer then? And doesn't mean that we don't want it. In fact, we don't want everybody to come back. We don't have room for everybody, but we do want them to be engaged shareholders. So some of them may come back. I think there will be definitely some that will come back day to day. There will be others who want to serve on our ownership council. There'll be other ones who want to serve on our foundation. There will be other ones who want to observe the board, and then maybe they want to go through the steps to become a shareholder director. So we talked about all the different ways they could be involved, and there are myriad of ways to be engaged and not entitled.
I love that. There is a question that came in that kind of relates to this, and it's looking from the family aspect. how would you navigate once you get into the third and fourth generations, which children will be involved? Also, how do you navigate spouses and married ins?
Okay. And this is not the policy for every family, okay, but it is one that we established several years ago. Actually, the G3s took this on with, I think, the help of a consultant at the time, that in a couple, we really only would like to see one person be involved in the day-to-day, but we encourage others to be involved in myriads of ways. And it's just yeah, something that we've had to work through. Again, might not be right. We've got a lot of dealerships that have a lot of family members and spouses, married ins all involved. But for us, we have the policy that only one person, and at this point, we've only had direct descendants involved on a day-to-day basis, but certainly married ins in other ways, like the foundation or part-time work or whatever. And then the G3, G4s, we do have that employment policy, which we put together already in the 90s, late 90s. So if a family member wants to have a summer job, we're going to try to find summer jobs. If they are interested in an internship, we'd like them to learn the right to do that, but we might help them get the first one, and then the next one they need to get by proving how well they did. But if they want to come to work full time, they know that they need to work 3 to 5 years for another company, be promoted or have some sign of good work. And if they want to be involved eventually in the C-suite, they need to have a master's. And for us, that's worked well. I don't know if any of you ever heard the person named Leon Danko. He was like one of the early gurus of family business way back in the 80s. And we worked with him some. And he had 2 things that he said he thought were important in family businesses is outside work before you come into the business and independent directors. And we've actually followed both of those, and I've heard the same thing from John Ward, who's one of those gurus, at Northwestern, and I think we've heard the same things from you and I in the state. Doesn't mean it's right for everyone, but those are things to consider.
Great. We had another question, and it's kind of just setting the stage to a lot of what you've talked about and pulling a few pieces so that people understand the context. And that is, how many family members are involved in Vermeer? And then after this question, I'll let Kristen jump in because I know she has one too.
Well, we have 85 shareholders. Now that's, again, the children all the way to the second generation. We are called the pillars sometimes, the second generation. But involved in a day-to-day basis, it would just be 3 on the day-to-day at Vermeer Corp. However, we have 10 members of our ownership council, all family members. Only one of them is involved full-time. That's our daughter, Mindy, and she is on ownership council and works in the business. And then on our board, we have 3 shareholder directors, plus Jason, of course, who is full-time here, but the other 3 are not. Well, no, one of them is now. Yes, because one of them is my cousin's son, and he's working in the marketing department and doing a great job. So mostly, it's really the 3 plus then a bunch of us who are ambassadors that do this shareholder, kind of connecting with team members, and the ownership council. And the ownership council, we've got 1 member from every, what I would say, nuclear family. So I have 2 brothers' families, and then I've got 4 cousins. So we've got 1 or 2 from every nuclear group so that everyone can feel represented. Ownership council has been a really important thing for us. They do a lot of tough work, to be honest with you, because they've dealt with the married in question. Mm-hmm. They've dealt with buy-sell. They've dealt with, how many people do we need on the ownership council? How does it work? So they deal with a lot of stuff, and they're the main force behind family camp and educational opportunities and all the educational kind of the educational matrix that we put together for all the different age groups. So yeah, a lot of work, a lot of good work.
Mhm.
So my next question, what life advice would you give the younger generation today?
Hmm. Um, be curious, get involved, and then ask questions and learn from that. Um, also, learn a lot about what really gives you joy. And I know there's different thoughts on this. I mean, how early can young people really know, quote, what their passion is? But trying different things, so trying different kinds of internships maybe in the summer if they're at that college age, um, uh, finding out, asking questions, meeting with people. I have to say right now, we have a granddaughter who is doing an internship here this summer in marketing. She's very adamant that someday she hopes to be here, but she also wants to have a family, and she really wants to know how to navigate the balance between family and children and doing work. And so she's been very intentional about meeting with several women in the organization who are very involved, doing a phenomenal job, but they also have young families. And just kind of understanding, how did you navigate that? So, asking questions, and again, trying different things. And then for us, that family camp experience is really a good one, because they get the young people get exposure to products just like the older generations do. They get exposed to some of our team members, quite a few of our team members, lots of times, and those are all just good connections. I don't know if that answered
Awesome.
it exactly or not.
I think it did a great job. And we're getting close kind of to our time that will be closing soon, but we do have a few more questions. And this one's very Mary specific. What is one surprising thing people might not know about you?
Well, I mentioned one of them earlier, that I got my pilot's license on my 17th birthday. I'm not current anymore. I had about 250 hours, and then thought I would get current again when we moved back to the Des Moines area. But that's when insurance rates in the early 80s went crazy, and I needed 1,000 hours in order to be insured in the company plane. So I just sort of let it go, only because I had two small children. I had enough on my fork. But so that would be one thing. Another thing that is an interesting thing, which has been definitely part of my career, and I have enjoyed most of it. I've been fairly involved in a lot of political situations, like the first chair of Iowa's Association of Business and Industry, first woman chair. And then I was the first chair of the National Association of Manufacturers in DC. So there were about 6, 7, 8 years where I spent a lot of time going to Washington for that job. And then I was on the President Obama's Export Council, which was really phenomenal, and several other things, the Exim Bank, et cetera. But I was asked often to run for office. I was asked, I think, 4 different times if I would run as a lieutenant governor, and once as a governor. Terry Branstad really tried to convince me I should run when he ran the second time, and that just was not for me. And it was not who I am at all. And I don't really like all the political stuff that
Mhm.
goes on. But I was happy to tell the story about manufacturing, particularly in Washington, D.C. And I think I could do that pretty well as a mid-sized manufacturer, and family owned. That resonates in D.C. And you've got to talk both sides of the aisle. You've got to be talking to both sides and the administration, and really tell the story about manufacturing and about family business. So again, I was asked to run for various offices, and I said no. So that might be something people don't know.
That is, I didn't know that. Kristen, you have a follow-up question there?
Yeah, where do you pull inspiration from and what actually keeps you motivated?
Um, I read a lot, and I've read lots and lots of business books, and I get inspiration from that. I also love to walk, and I would say, and I do like to speak. Particularly when I was at Vermeer, I did a lot of speaking to different groups, to team members, to dealers, to customers, and I enjoyed that a lot. And then leadership, I've also done some speaking, as Jane mentioned, to family groups, family transitions, those kinds of things. But I think that often I get the best ideas when I'm out walking of what I'm going to be trying to focus on. Now I go back and maybe do a cloud design of what I want to speak about, but I formulate a lot of stuff when I'm out walking. So walking and reading, and talking to friends. My husband's actually listening here, and he's a great cohort, and a great person to bounce things off of.
I love that. So as we get ready to close, you're at a stage where you get to look back at a lot of different experiences. And I think about you raising kids who are now in the operation. What stands out as kind of the pieces that are most rewarding and that will be the things that you carry close to your heart?
Well, no doubt the things that most rewarding are seeing team members or people in dealerships excel, do well, find their place and do well. And I had the opportunity to help to coach several people along the way who maybe were not in a great place, and coach them by suggesting they go ask opinions from a few other people and then get back engaged in their work. No doubt Dale and I are extremely blessed and pleased that both of our children are involved in the business. And I would say, for those of you who are mothers with kids and are thinking about, will they ever want to be involved in the business? We did take them along on not every summer, but on some trips where they would get to meet dealership people when they were like, 10 to 15, 16. And actually, I worked with a key customer in Russia, as when we still could go to Russia, back in the 90s. And I took Jason along. We went way off, way off grid into Siberia, where they were using one of our trenchers and one of our directional drills to bring natural gas into a small village in Siberia that had all been just using coal and wood, to heat up their homes, etc. And I brought Jason along on that. He was early on in college, and that I think was kind of life-changing for him, actually, because he saw here these Vermeer machines that had his grandfather's name on it, because he was very close to his grandfather, bringing very important infrastructure into this small village. And all these young kids would go up to Jason. They wanted to practice their English on him. And I think that had a huge influence on him. And again, just the fact that I was passionate about the business, Dale was extremely supportive in his physician role, and then making some stops where they met customers and they met dealers influenced them. So I think I'm also very proud of the fact that we did those kinds of things.
I know that as I think about your cheerleading a family business, and from the very start of you and I putting together the Family Business Center, you have been so instrumental in helping other family businesses and also being so transparent. Because and I'm gonna kind of leave us and let you comment on this line. This was actually from a meeting that we had this week, and you were part of it for our advisory crew. And I wrote it down, and it was, every family business has the same issues, and every family business has its own issues. And I thought that was just a perfect way to sum it up. So, do you want to leave us with a little few words of wisdom in terms of family
You know,
business?
I just find it whenever I'm at a conference with other family businesses, we all have some of the things we deal with family members. It might be siblings or parents or children. We all have to deal with some of the issues from the economy and maybe what's happening in Washington with tariffs, et cetera. But then we also have sometimes our own specific issues. And that often goes back to the history of that company. So because of the history, some of the things we had in our history, it was that decision to only have one person in a partner relationship involved in the day-to-day business. And I know that there are other things in other family businesses that they have gone a certain path, but it's probably due to their history. So, and that's what makes us unique. So those the historic memories and the historic instances that sometimes then become policy.
I love that. So thank you for ending that note with us. Thank you for spending the hour with us and sharing all of your experiences and thoughts from your own journey to things that truly impacted your family business. So we hope to see others at some upcoming events and know that you usually see you, Mary and Dale, at the conference and other things that we have going on. And I know I see people approach you all the time. So thank you for being such a
Well,
resource across the state, because I know everybody
a
appreciates
privilege.
it.
A privilege. Thank you for everything UNI does to bring us together.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the week.
Okay.
Bye.